Joining us now to review some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world is Arise News analyst Emmanuel Efeni. Good morning, Emmanuel.
Good morning, Ruben. Good morning,
Mr. Efeni.
Good morning, Rufai.
Greatest Malabite.
Yes.
Action.
Hey guys.
So let's have the action now.
Yes. Let's start with these day newspapers, Ruben. The lead story, Analysts. Will UK courts allow apparent attempt to defraud Nigeria of $9.6 billion? A question. Judgment reserved as briefcase company cites desperation. Yes, after 2 days of hearing, Saros Crastin, the judge there, has reserved ruling to a later date. He needs time to study the presentations by the lawyers, Nigeria, and the lawyers to this briefcase company. Now, the material question, and this is what the analysts are saying, which this day is reporting. The material question at the end of it all, according to analysts, is whether the UK judiciary will allow itself to be an accessory to a grand fraud by a shell company owned by Irish nationals who did nothing, invested nothing, employed no one, exploiting loophole in governance, and of course, colluding with certain persons to defraud Nigeria, to fleece us of almost 1/3 of our foreign reserve. If we are to go by the presentation of Professor Konya Ajayi yesterday on this program, I want to say we should be optimistic that the UK judiciary will not allow itself to be so used. But again, we have to wait for the judgment. Ruben, Tundu, and Rufai.
I think it's great to talk. It's great to talk about the noise of the enemy. Now here, the enemy will be P&ID. But let's not also forget the silence of our so-called friends here, that Nigerians that did this deal with P&ID. I think, except we get to that stage where Nigerians do not connive with other foreigners to rip this country of its wealth and its commonwealth, then we're not going anywhere. And when you see the formula, the way it works, there's always a Nigerian in it, complicit, there's always an insider. So let us also look at that. Either ways, as a patriotic Nigerian, I want us to win the case. But even if we win, we didn't just win like that. Something has left us. The $200 million, I keep talking about that. In a time like this, there's no account you can put that. It's money that we could have used for something else, but now it's gone to the case as a bond to start with. So let's look at the Nigerians too that are silent and are complicit within this system.
Yes, Rufai, you are right. Yesterday when we had this conversation with Professor Konyisola Ajayi, SAN, he made a point about omissions, negligence, mediocrity on the part of Nigerian officials, and the lack of diligent prosecution of our case. And this day headline, more or less for me, echoes one of Professor Ajayi's, Konyisola's conclusions, which is that, look, at the end of the day, he does not expect that even if we lose the case in court, that the United Kingdom will allow its courts to be used to perpetrate fraud as a very strategic international partner, not just with Nigeria, but also as a country that has statutes that will not allow the United Kingdom to be made a haven for any kind of fraudulent conduct. And you know that the gravamen of the case in this instance is Nigeria saying, look, the P&ID was in itself a shell company that was not legally constituted, that, it was a company that was set up deliberately to defraud Nigeria, and that, Nigeria was even defrauded, and that the case being brought forward by P&ID is not in order. But the question is, how did we mismanage the process and we dropped the ball consistently, which was the main issue that was raised by Justice Butcher when the case went to the commercial court. Now, if we lose the case, now Nigeria will be arguing from the public policy end, because when Konyisola Ajayi SAN was talking about the UK not allowing apparent attempt to defraud Nigeria of 9.6 billion, that's public policy. And I would like to see, if the matter goes that way, how we argue it. And then second, another question that we should advert our minds to. How come, the settlement, because there was an attempt at settlement, how did that fail? What really transpired? We didn't get to that point with Professor Konya Ajayi yesterday, but these are many of the questions that we need to raise with regard to the point that Rufai raised earlier.
Tundu?
Oh, we can move on. I don't want to repeat what they've said. We have complicity, we have indolence. It should be looked into. Yes,
but let's pursue and chase away this hawk. We'll come and deal with the errant chicks later. Now, let's go to the Daily Sun newspaper. WASC. Reps reject federal government's withdrawal order. Demand reversal. Non-participation will cause irreparable damage. Obi Afe Babalola. Now, the withdrawal from the West African Senior Secondary School Certificate Examination, which the Minister of Education, Adamu, announced sometime, well, it's not been taken lightly by many stakeholders. Now, the lawmakers in the House of Representatives are wading in to say that that order should be reversed. But my understanding of the Adamu's order is that unity schools will not be involved. Is it not possible for schools in the private sector, state schools, to also participate? But that intervention by the lawmakers, I think, is quite timely, that we need to review and reverse that decision in order not to jeopardize the future of a generation of students, because others in West Africa, English-speaking West African countries, will be writing that exams.
If this will cause irreparable damage, like some people claim, how about the irreparable damage COVID-19 will cause in the bodies of people, or have caused in the bodies of some people? And I think this is where we need to call for leadership. Where are we on all of this? If the minister is saying, no, we can't go ahead with this, the House of Representatives are coming to write another letter and say, let's go ahead with this. Where is true leadership in all of this? The first statement we heard concerning this was that we're going to go ahead. Final year students, terminal examination candidates will go for the exams. Now they're saying otherwise. But it's so easy for the National Assembly to say this. Why? Have they gone round the schools to do an impact assessment on the infrastructures we even have in these schools? It's so easy for them to write. And Mr. Efeni, the point I keep making is, if it's a war, are we going to say it's going to cause an irreparable damage? I feel the world is being inundated by the war of COVID-19. And let's be careful. The other countries you're talking about, they must have put in measures. We have not put in measures. I can't see that yet.
But I am insisting that if only the graduating students, the final year students, are going back to schools, how come we cannot put in measures to do proper distancing,
Efeni,
bring in more teachers to ensure that we do this exam in a safe environment?
Mr.
That is the issue.
Efeni, you forget these students will have dormitories. You can't monitor what they'll do in the dormitories. It's not only in the class. A lot of students that even go to federal schools have to be in the dormitories. A lot of students are in the dormitories, not only in the class. So can you monitor the
dormitories will be enough for only final year students, because only final year students are coming to school. So the space should be enough. Yes, Ruben.
Efeni, let's take a quick commercial break. We'll come back to you, and then the review of some of the headlines in today's newspapers from around the world. We continue. Stay with us. Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Still with us is Arise News analyst Emmanuel Efeni, who has been reviewing some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world. Emmanuel Efeni,
yes.
Welcome back.
Yes, thank you.
First, let Tundun respond to the point you raised about the reopening of schools and the position of the House of Representatives.
I don't think, thank you, Dr. Abati, I don't think it's any kind of a competition. The whole of the English-speaking West Africa can really do whatever they like. Nigeria is a peculiar case. This exam, you know what it is, as far as I'm concerned, it depends on each person's appetite for risk. Some people are more risk averse than others. And if you're going to take risks, then you can risk your own life and your own family's life, not other people. At the end of the day, if these students are allowed to sit these exams and the rates spike and parents and teachers die, all we're going to hear from these people agitating is, sorry, our condolences. That will be it. We are dealing with a potentially deadly pandemic. I don't think we can ever be too cautious. And I do agree with Chief Afe Babadola's position that it could endanger the lives of 1.5 million children and turn them into criminals because for a whole year they're going to be idle. I don't see why a special dispensation cannot be given to Nigeria to perhaps sit these exams in 3 months, in 6 months. When we see how the numbers are looking, it doesn't have to take a whole year. This is a pandemic. It cannot be overstretched. It's not just some flimsy excuse. Special allowances can be made if it's applied for, if it's negotiated. We can be creative in this kind of situation. The House of Reps talking about how this could have a huge detriment to Nigeria's economy. We do not sacrifice our children on the altar of economy. That's not who we are as a nation. That, for me, is not the point here. Right now, the point is health and safety and lives, period.
Okay. Well, just by way of footnote to what has been said so far, just 3 quick points. The first is that, one, the Minister of Education and the Minister of State for Education, speaking at cross purposes, sends out the wrong signal. And I think that, we should insist that they clarify the position of the federal government. Second, the House of Representatives asking the President to overrule the Ministry of Education on this matter to allow children to take exams. Well, I'm all for caution, and we've said that repeatedly on this program. And the House of Representatives is entitled to express an opinion. But number 3, we should all realize that education is on the concurrent list. And that means that the President of Nigeria, I don't think, is exactly in a position to dictate to the state governments or to the local governments what to do with school exams. So, and that brings us to the point that was made by the minister, that the federal government indeed is not dictating. But as I said, the House of Reps can express an opinion. I think that what we can say is that states in Nigeria have relative capabilities. They have relative strengths. And the COVID-19 situation varies from one state to the other. If there is any state that does its own assessment and sees that it is good enough to go ahead, and that state gets the approval of the NCDC, the Ministry of Environment, and the Ministry of Health on the basis of the collaboration that should exist at the national level, then, of course, perhaps in some parts of Nigeria, it may be safe to do the exams. But in those places where there is very serious problem, high positivity rate, those states should not even think about it. And the president should not be railroaded into making the mistake of dictating what science should advise upon.
Well, in any case, we have alternate O-levels exams conducted by the National Examination Council, NECO.
Well, thank you, Mr. Efeni.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.